Hey guys, it's Kyle from Regrettable Props, and today we're going to be working on the final part in the Lawbringer armor tutorial series. We're going to be covering the chest plate as well as the suiting up process, which is going to be at the end of the video. If you want to find the templates, there's going to be a link in the description to where you can purchase those templates as well as the materials used within this video. I'm going to be tracing out the left side of the chest plate template. Remember to flip it for your right side of the front. Only one side where it's curved is gonna have a 45-degree bevel. Remembering for all templates, actually, I should say, areas that are marked 45 are gonna be marked 45, and everywhere else where there is no indication to be at a 45-degree cut, you're going to make sure you are cutting at a 90-degree angle. So we're going to trace on the template onto our 5mm or 10mm craft foam, wherever you decide to choose. I went with 5mm, and remembering to cut only one side with a 45-degree bevel. And I trace on the front and the back templates, remembering to flip them for both sides. Now I will say this about the chest templates, that they are made a little bit large in size and require a bit of work in regards to you to fit your body proportion, since typically this character from the Lawbringer is meant for someone who's a little bit heavier, larger than myself. I had to take these templates a lot in. For someone who's a little bit larger than me, you might find you only have to alter these a little bit. Now I will suggest that you might want to trace these onto some cardstock first and then tape it up and do a mock fit to see how they would feel, or onto some cardboard. That way you don't have to waste some craft foam or whatever type of material you are using. And once you guys are satisfied with that size of your templates, you can then move on to doing this out of foam. I do apologize for that. However, I know that this chest part is a little bit going to be a bit different for everyone. So take that into consideration when you are doing this part of your templates for the Lawbringer. Now we're going to be moving on to gluing these pieces of the templates together, slowly working our way, curving this edge together. I use some hot glue. I would suggest using contact cement if you have it available, using Drop or Barge if those are some good brands that are nearby. If not, I went with hot glue since that's a reliable brand for me. So slowly working inch by inch. I'm going to do a quick snippet of just how slow I am working on this curved portion to make sure that edge is lined up. If it doesn't work out, that's not a problem. We can further clean up that seam or edge to make it a little bit smoother in the dremeling process. Now you can see we have the front and back pieces glued, however they are not connected, and you can see it's a little bit large on me. I once again went over this, trimming it down, seeing how it's sized on me. I made this chest piece so I can put it on by myself. This part you can leave the excess on if you want and have it so it can overlap and be connected by buckles or Velcro. However, for myself, I usually go cons by myself, so I designed this chest piece for myself to be a little bit better and easier for me to put on by myself. So I'm going to size it up, get the front and back lined up, and try and get those edges and see where I need them to be cut off and trimmed down so I can line them up and glue them together. Now since I'm making this so I can put it on by myself, I'm going to line up the bottoms of the front and back and glue it down. And to fix that top part of the edge, I'm going to later go over using a box cutter to make that transition of a curve much more fluid. Here you can see what it is like once it's glued. Once we have the sides glued up together, we're going to be connecting the tops of the front and back of the chest plates. I cut out some additional pieces of foam. They're about 6 inches in length by about 4 inches in width. I did not include a template for this, simply due to how your body might be for your torso. You might need to be shorter, you might need to be longer, but then once I did that, I just glued them onto the top of the back plate. I left enough room so I can kind of figure out where I need my head to fit through. That way I can trim some excess to get a much better fitted neck hole for me. Once we have those front and back pieces connected with those additional pieces that we added, we're going to trim off the excess of the foam to have it follow the same curve that we have on the rest of the front and back of the chest plate. Now to figure out how much more excess material I need to take away, I trimmed off some of it to make a larger opening for my head to fit through, and then from there I was able to see where it was a bit of a struggle for me to put on by myself, and then I just alter that, making sure it's symmetrical for both the front and back and left and right sides. Once we have that neck hole figured out, we're going to be moving on to the back collar plate, remembering for the bottom edge to have a 45-degree bevel. and I altered the template to be a little bit smaller in height simply due to the proportions for the rest of the chest piece for my armor. So we traced it out onto the same thickness of foam that we did for the rest of the chest plate, and then we're going to hot glue it and keep it even in the back using the middle seam where we had the left and right sides of the back chest plate to figure out where we need to keep it so it's symmetrical in line with the rest of the spine. Moving on to the chest upper plate, the bottom layer, since I had to tailor in the rest of the templates to be a little bit smaller fitting for me, this template is now a bit too large, so I need to alter it down and cut it down to size so it can fit proportionally for the rest of the armor. So you may need to figure this out for yourself, alter it, follow kind of the same process I'm doing on screen, marking where I need to put the neck plate and whether I need to, you need to make any alterations to fit you properly. Once we have that glued into place, this is where it's going to look like. You're going to want to keep your the pieces where it ends off to kind of be about in the middle of your shoulders. Now we're going to be moving on to the chest upper plate, the top layer. Now we need to alter this same piece to be a bit smaller as well. Follow the same process of what I did before, shrinking the template to fit proportionally with your size of the chest. Once you have that glued into place, this is what it's going to look like. Now we're going to be moving on to the front neck guard plate. Once again, simply due to my size being a little bit smaller than what the templates I had made before, I need to shrink it down a little bit. You're going to want to do a bit of trial and error, maybe use a piece of cardboard to figure it out the correct size before you actually trace it onto your foam and glue it there and realize that it's too big or too small. So once again, alter the templates based on your body type or size, and remembering to trace a 45-degree where it needs to be on both sides of the template. So this now for an optional piece by the back collar, you can cut out a rectangular strip, make it slightly curved if you want, and put in some 5 sections where you want some little indents or pieces to stick out. For some reason my camera focused on the white of the snow to make it really hard to see, but that's kind of the gist of what I did for that back guard as extra part. Now for the last foam piece that we're going to have to do for this chest template is we're going to be tracing out this shield piece onto some foam. We're going to build it up using several layers of foam, remembering to flip the template once, that way we can have that traced onto the foam and used to have the textured side be covered. That way you have untextured side on the front and back of this template. I used 5mm craft foam here and I used 3 layers of it, so remembering to flip the template once to get the other side for it to be textured. Now for the battle axes and skull, I'm going to be dremeling these in to get the raised details. However, you can use 2mm craft foam to build up this section where the pole axes cross as well as the skull and outside trim meet. Now I traced some additional lines on using a black Sharpie that follow from the chest upper plate bottom layer all the way to the back, going towards the shoulder area. For some reason the aperture was focused really dark and wasn't really usable footage for me to show that, but you'll be able to see that line being traced on following this process. Now to connect that chest shield piece that we did with the 3 layers of 5mm foam, I used some black chain link that I had, and figuring out the placement for it might be a little bit different for you, but here you can see roughly the process that I did. I looked everywhere online for eBay or Kijiji to find Gothic, hex-sided chain links and had no luck. I even attempted to make it out of craft foam, however that was not very durable and was too large in size to get the effect that I wanted, so I just went with some chain link that I had and just cut the length and placement, as you can see, using some hot glue to connect and hold everything in place. I was wrong when I said earlier that we are done making foam pieces. We have to add the front trim piece. This piece is going to be used the same for the front and the back of the chest plates. remembering since this is the left side, you want to flip it for the right side and cut those 45-degree bevels where you need to do so. To figure out the template for the back, I cut out the front first, and wherever it marked out to be where ended up on the sides, I folded that extra material in on that template and then traced it out onto the foam, simply due to the fact that if you had to bring in the waist of the sides of the chest, based simply due to your chest being smaller or larger, you may need to do the same for the rest of the templates. Now we're going to be moving on to a bit of a highlight reel of the dremeling process. I used a cone bit to dremel in these details, and as well as a sanding drum. I went over all the edges I need to round any of the seams that weren't properly lined up. I also sanded those seams flush and added some additional bow damage. It's easy process, just follow along. If you don't have a Dremel, use some sandpaper and you should be able to achieve the same result. Once we finish dremeling and sanding, we'll be moving on to filling in the seams. I use Quick Seal, which is a water-based caulking, which can be smoothed either using a popsicle stick or your finger. I just simply prefer to use my finger since it's much more easier for me to manipulate. And we're going to be doing this in all the areas that we feel like we need to fill in. May have to do 1 to 3 coats depending on the severity of the area you're trying to fill in. Once that's been done, we're going to be moving on to those black lines where I did not add any additional foam. You could add 2mm foam, however I went with puff paint to help get those raised areas, and wait till this fully dries. You may want to wait 24 hours before you move on to actually applying any sealer over top of the puff paint, simply due to the duration it takes for it to fully dry. For some reason, I must have forgot to hit the record button, so we added a bunch of googly eyes onto that back neck guard piece, the lower portion, and to the rest of the chest plate. I used some fairly large size. For the neck guard plate, I went in rows of 4, 3, 2, and 1, and about 6 on each chest side. You can add more if you want, but I use some fairly large size ones. Now to have the area for where we want our hip protector pieces that we made in a previous episode to be attachable to our chest piece, we'll be using some black webbing and some buckles. That way we can take them on and off with ease, either for transport or putting on whatever it so be it. That way it's just another convenience thing that we have. Now we're going to connect the pauldrons. This is simply an additional part that I want to be permanently attached to my armor, since I want this to be able to be put on by myself. So I just use some black webbing. If you want it to be detachable, you can either use some buckles or Velcro. For the painting process, I skipped that simply due to the length of the video. I use the same painting process that we did for the rest of the armor pieces for this build. Covered the entire chest piece in black paint mixed with Modge Podge, did about 2 coats, waited for it to fully cure, applied the dark layer of the metallics that we use for the rest of the armor, applied the highlighting parts, the highlighting silver, dry brushed it all over, did the black wash to tie it all in, and afterwards you can seal it in the Rust-oleum clear gloss finish to get that metallic shine to really pop out. And with that, we can call it a wrap for the chest piece, for the Lawbringer, as well as the final part in this series. I want to say thank you to everyone who has come by and watched and supported me on this building process. If you're wanting a list of materials, they can be found within the description, as well as a link to where you can purchase the templates that I've made myself. What you're going to be seeing now, if you want to skip this part of the video, I'm simply just going to be putting on the full armor. I started with having the fabrics on, so for me that means having some jeans on with a belt and that faux chainmail fabric shirt and tunic. Once again, if you guys have any questions in regards to the templates, if you purchase them, or for this build, or for future things that you would like to see built, please comment them. I try to get back to every comment that I can. And if you enjoyed the video, hit a thumbs up. If you did not, hit dislike. And subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more cosplaying tutorials. This has been Kyle from Regrettable Props, and I hope you guys have a good day and night whenever you're watching this. Bye.